All right. Hello, everybody, to Palantir Weekly, episode number 96. The title of this video was not enough words for the title to explain this week because there was a lot going on this week. We have an entire NHS saga to deal with. We have a Kathy Wood, Sham Sanker podcast where Sham Sanker, CTO of Palantir, said some really interesting things. We got Palantir share price. I think it ended today a little bit below $16, but at one point being $16.80, almost up 20% for the week. We got a $250 million 3-year contract by the U.S. Army, followed up by a $60 million contract from the NIH. There was a lot. There was a lot this week, and so we've got a lot to discuss. One thing I want to say before we get into this is I noticed this today on the morning stream. We had a New York Times, what some would call hit piece on Palantir this morning that came out, is I truly feel like we're part of a movie. I mean, we are all covering a company that is in one of the most exciting stages in the world because like what makes a story or a journey fun is some struggle, some drama, right? Every movie needs a little bit of conflict. Every story throughout history, you need a little bit of conflict, you need a little bit of drama, you need a protagonist, you need someone who solves it, you need the ups and downs, and you go through those ups and downs, and then the end result is more rewarding. So, if they announce the NHS deal with, no concerns, no problem, Palantir's perfect, here's $500 million, it would be awesome. I wouldn't complain. But the drama we're going through, it's not like I want the drama, but the drama is inevitable given the nature of what Palantir is as a company, how the world perceives it, the co-founders of the company, and all of it matriculates into this incredible story that we are here to try to break down a little bit more clearly for the audience that is consuming it. So super exciting to be an investor, super exciting to be a shareholder. And hopefully my thesis is that the most exciting companies in the world go through all this drama and they deliver outstanding results. Amazon, Google, Tesla, Meta, they were all vilified by the media. They had to go through a lot of shit before they gave their shareholders returns. And hopefully Palantir will be another company that does that. I think we should start off with the $250 million deal. Let's get that out of the way, then we'll talk about NHS. Palantir got a $250 million 3-year contract up until 2026 for R&D services for AI and machine learning from the Army. They got a $43 million deal for 1 year back in 2022. That expired yesterday. The Army doubled that to $83 million a year and gave them $250 million fixed for 3 years. Dom, what were your impressions of this deal? Then we'll get to Arnie.
I mean, I think one of the biggest things to pay attention to with the Army deal and just the relationship with Army in general is the continued expansion. I mean, this is stemming all the way back years ago when Palantir had to sue Army and the government to get the procurement process changed and how they procure security or software, and they've now expanded more. I mean, like if you look at over the last 3 years, all the different pieces of military and different parts of Army and other agencies continues to expand, and that's what we want to see. We want to see the acquire, expand and scale, and we're in like full scale mode with the military. And the crazy thing is we're only tapping into 0.2% of the military spending goes on software. So I think there's a lot more opportunity to go. This is just the start. So I was really excited to see it, and it should bode well for a good Q4, and hopefully we don't have to wait several quarters to get into the S&P 500, but that it rolls around fairly quickly and gets rolled in after a really strong Q3.
Arnie, $250 million for 3 years. I think the market kind of expects us to get these deals, but nonetheless, every time we get it, it feels crazy that we actually get the deals. What were your raw reactions to this deal?
Let me say that I'm not accustomed yet to the idea that the stock reacts positively when positive news happens, because we have been through almost 3 years where basically the better the news, the more the stock dropped. But apart from this, I love the continuation fact. As Dom mentioned, it's not really important the real number, be that 200, 250, 300. The reality is that is important, but that's not the core information. The core information is Palantir has these outstanding clients that want more. And if they keep wanting more, they can generate more and more synergies between inside the same department and also outside the other department. one thing that really impressed me about this contract that can be noticed from this page I'm sharing. I don't know if you can already see it. Okay, is that 250 million. Let's have a very quick look at the same contract of the contracts that were released that same day. 250, Palantir 120, 44. Not clear here. Then 31, 30, 27, 20, and then we go to, well, you see, 10, 10, 10, and then Lockheed Martin, 95, Raytheon, 75. So in this specific day, Palantir got a contract that is more than 2x the contracts that Raytheon and Lockheed Martin received. So obviously they are accustomed to have also billion deals, but at least this is a nice hint that, hey, the deals Palantir is getting are not always that small. So I'm very confident on the direction. As I mentioned before, dealing with the government is tough because the revenues can be lumpy due to many circumstances, political reasons, the budgets being delayed. Also, there are a lot of changes right now that are positively set to benefit Palantir. We just don't know really when they will happen. I think for anyone who has made a little bit of due diligence in how the army is actually approaching all the AI component, be that direct army or CIA, everything related to the government is approaching AI. They're trying to understand, hey, what's going on, what we should do, and is
how did you feel about the R&D component of this? And Dom, you can answer that as well, because this is an I don't know if we have to deliver a prototype. I don't know if we have to even deliver software. R&D is pretty vague. Do you guys have any light to shed on what R&D looks like?
R&D can be you can label a lot of things as R&D, from headcount to particular products you're developing. I mean, there's definitely a blanketed wide statement when you say R&D like that. I think to Arnie's point, what I'm just excited about is the expansive use cases, right? When you build the ontology, and for anybody who hasn't gone to learn.palantir.com, go there, get certified. It's easy. You don't need to use Foundry. It will help you understand the technology and the advantages it has much better, and why you should be excited about owning the stock. So you consistently see more concepts and more use cases from these customers that have used the product for years and years. Now we're seeing expansion. I'm sure AIP will be a part of what Army uses. We know they're using Apollo. We know they're using Gotham. It just gets more and more sticky to the point where the switching costs are just way too high. The time it would take to rip that out and put something else in would be just devastating for the military. And I think that will go a long way for commercial customers the longer they use the product and are deeper in their ontology.
Keep in mind that we also have exactly this week, last week, the new. Sorry, no, I didn't want to share the screen. The new conference, software for government, where they basically pitched all the products, the new products that they are targeting, which includes also our speculation from the previous weeks related to the headset. So we still know almost nothing, but imagine that when we think of research, potentially there are also all these use cases to tackle very specific problems. So I think for this, it's not really important to know what exactly Palantir does, as long as we keep seeing the direction that the government side is not dead, as someone were saying last year. Actually, I believe it is still a very important component in the growth, and very, very important from the growth profile, where basically it needs to sustain the growth of the commercial side, basically like AWS is doing for the e-commerce side of Amazon.
Okay. Let's move on to another topic. This is a pretty hot topic. I'm sure we'll spend a little bit of time on this. NHS. So I just want to walk through the run of events that happened this week, and then we'll get everyone's take on it. Essentially, on the NHS's website, they said September 28th, we're getting the deal. Now, all of us in the community, I don't think anyone definitively said it's coming out on the 28th. I know in every video I made, I said, look, guys, it says the 28th, but governments are governments and shit happens. And so you definitely expected that it could have been delayed, but September 28th was the tentative date. September 28th happens, we get no deal. Okay, cool. We get no deal. Government's delayed all the time, whatever. However, a couple of events happen in between. Number one, Foxglove, an organization that we all know for the past 2 years has been religiously trying to campaign against Palantir getting this deal for whatever reasons they have. You can agree with them or disagree with them, but that has been their motive. They shut down their social media. They said, look, we're coming off of social media. And they did that the day that the Palantir contract was supposedly going to be announced. That was really interesting because the one big campaigning arm that was against Palantir shuts down. I mean, I don't think there's any other organization. There's articles here and there, but this was a coordinated attempt from a media organization for Palantir to not get this deal. They're out of the picture. Then today we get an update that the deal is delayed until October, mid-October. And in the meantime, the NHS has announced a £2 million campaign to essentially educate consumers on what's going to be happening with their data with the FDP, because it seems like a lot of articles are suggesting that UK citizens may opt out of putting their data into the FDP because of all the stuff they've been reading about it. They're afraid of their data being exploited. And then the federated data platform has no value because Palantir can't do anything unless they have the data. So right now we're up in the air. Do we have the deal? Do we not have the deal? There's other companies in the UK like Contexta that now entered the bidding process, and one of the former NHS directors is now part of their staff. I still don't know if the deal is even decided or if the deal is done, but by mid-October, we should know if it'll happen. Just a lot of stuff has happened in between. Let's start with Arnie. What was your take on this entire saga?
As I mentioned previously, the fact that there is some drama is what makes the journey really exciting. We are just the narrators of this drama. Without the drama, we wouldn't be here probably, because everything would just go very smoothly and there would be no question marks. This NHS is a big question mark that theoretically, as a reminder, it should have been rewarded last year. 1 year later and some months later, we're still here debating that. The big problem is the public perception, probably, and also a component due to a merger of the existing provider of software from the NHS, which was just acquired by United Health. That complicated stuff even more. So I would say better. So far, it is annoying to see this saga. So far, we don't have any real hint that could damage the probabilities of actually getting the deal done, apart from a lot of noise, especially from those guys from Foxglove that actually made this very, very weird move. My simple reasoning is why should you drop your campaign right now? Like, basically, your only task is what in Italian is rompere le scatole. Like saying, being loud to, hey, we want to annoy you to prove this point. Why should you stop communicating if you are so close to get a victory? Implicitly telling me, okay, maybe they are realizing that their entire campaign against Palantir is basically a waste of time, a waste of money. So annoying, always too delayed. I think everyone kept asking in the last months, when the NHS, and now, unfortunately, we still have to say, okay, still stays some week to wait. But at the end of the day, we waited for more than 1 year. 2 weeks is nothing.
Dom, your perspective on everything going on with the NHS?
I like what Tom said. I'm just reading it verbatim. He said, I think the NHS 500 million contract for Palantir is a done deal. They just haven't announced it officially yet. Why? The NHS needs Palantir more than Palantir needs the NHS deal equals deal gets made. I would agree with that. Obviously, things can go sideways. There's a lot of political, drama in Europe when it comes to data. It'd be nice to have it, but it's not the end of the world if they don't get it, because you look at what they're doing with the U.S. healthcare system. You look at HCA rolling this out to 9 different facilities, and they've spoken at 2 AIP cons, and now they're saying, hey, in the next couple of years, our goal is to go from 9 hospitals to 180 hospitals, covering 90,000 nurses. Proof is in the pudding. I mean, the U.S. healthcare system is using it. It's just really more of political drama behind what the European government likes with data and data protection and their different kind of compliances, and they just have a different philosophy on things. But what's really interesting is that they're so hell-bent on, zero trust and all these different compliances. Palantir was built with the security first principle and has some of the best security capabilities for role-based access and controls on who has access to what data and how the data is used and how it's actually documented. So it's just kind of like for me, it's like an oxymoron. Like, if you're really concerned about how your data is used and then that it's secure, you would actually want a platform like Palantir over, let's say, a Microsoft or whoever.
Do you think there's any chance that they've decided on someone else, or do you think it's really likely?
But I mean, they've had Palantir in there for quite a while, so I mean, once again, switching costs would be high.
Yeah, and one other piece of news I forgot to mention is that today United Health, an American company, bought EMIS, which is the legacy software the NHS has been using to input patient data, for 1.2 billion pounds. So another level to the story is that acquisition, it was held up in the UK competition courts. Eventually, it got resolved literally this morning. That might have needed to happen as well for this deal to officially be announced, which is something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much pressure they're putting. Obviously, the deal would be substantial for short-term results, but their focus is in North America. I mean, where the growth is and in commercial.
Yeah. Arnie, what did you think about? Do you want me to share your screen or?
Yes.
Okay. You can talk. Then I'll ask.
Actually, this is a comment I received that was published months ago, actually on Yahoo Finance, basically explaining that point. EMIS Health runs all the NHS software. United Health is merging, so it delayed until October, November. Then Palantir will be using EMIS as its delivery system. How this guy knows? Basically because he's very close to this. I work for EMIS, supporting NHS software across Northern England. I've known about this for a year, and it was originally meant to be done in May, June. Basically, they just need to wait the merger to be completed. It seems it is a deal done. Obviously, it's always difficult to give a legitimacy to a random comment from someone that has not really skin in the game in terms of official reputation. So that was something that was dropped months ago. So it is weird to think, okay, this guy actually knew this was legit. So maybe like afterwards, seeing right now the completion of this deal says, okay, maybe this guy is right and knows what he's saying. Let's just wait and see.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Why do you think this morning the New York Times came out with a piece that starts with a secretive U.S. tech firm pushes towards the heart of UK healthcare? Any thoughts on this New York Times article? Arnie, we'll start with you.
Because that's what could catch the attention.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the simple reason. On the military side, what catches the attention is, think how cool the AI is doing on the battlefield. That's the next level thing. On this NHS part, if they made an article, look how Palantir cool is saving lives, is, okay, interesting, but not so much. But what about a secretive US tech firm pushes toward the heart of the UK health service? It's like, okay, I need to read this. I mean, and
clickbait.
Clickbait.
I mean, they are in the job of getting attention. So, as I pointed out, it is annoying on one side, laughable on the other side. For instance, skimming through the article, I didn't see any mention of the real actual results of Palantir. Like all these articles that want to put a negative light on Palantir, unfortunately, they never focus on they reduce the time to get the first visit done from cancer patients from weeks to 1 week. They saved 20%, 30% efficiency on cost. So the things that truly matter are never mentioned, but the fact that Peter Thiel backed Trump, that's always a good selling point for the article. So same stuff all over again here.
Dom,
another good example of that is Arnie posted just a day ago. Morgan Stanley started coverage in 2020 with a $13 price target. 3 years later, now it's worth $9.
Oh,
wait a minute, what happened in 3 years? 2 times the amount of revenue, 4x, 400% the clients, and they're GAAP profitable. And then he puts experts in a funny emoji. It really is. It's mind-boggling how people just want attention and the manipulation and kind of just how institutions and big money, skew things. The media, that's why I've been watching a lot less and less CNBC and other media on. I try to stay upon what's going on news-wise, but even then, I'm just like, I just care about my company. So, I'm watching more of your guys' stuff on YouTube and catching more of what's going on with the companies I care about. But great points there, Arnie, on that post.
Thank you. So this is exactly the reason why I was very happy to learn to be an analyst. I worked as an analyst for more or less 2 years in order to learn the skills, but more importantly, to understand how analysts work and potentially to capture the flows on what it means to be an analyst. And the unfortunate truth is that analysts, at the end of the day, are very close to the sales department, the trading department. So they need to sell the idea. So in order to make the career as a good analyst, it is more important you generate fees, you keep attention on, rather than actually being right. Being right is a nice thing to have, but it's not truly what drives your career as an analyst. It is true that the conditions were very different. Back then, when the guy said at the DPO, this company is worth $13, the growth was way stronger. The interest rates were way lower. So the WACC, the discount rate, was way lower. That created a condition where the models implied a very rich valuation. But I think this case definitely shows how different it is, the perspective from being an analyst with no skin in the game, where basically your job is write the report, tell something that catches the attention, and if you are not having anything interesting to say, basically you are writing for nothing. And when you are an investor, you are skin in the game and you need to be right. So my experience as an analyst told me what are the limitations, and I learned basically how to spot these stupid flows and exploit them as an investor.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I mean, it's a lot of sensationalism going around. And this goes back to my point that like Tesla gets just destroyed by mainstream media. And I think Elon a couple years ago just decided, you know what, I don't care. I'm just going to build a great company. And the fact that some of the obviously big media outlets want to bring you down, I think it just points to the fact that they're doing something important if you're going to have all this hate, right? It's the classic cliche that, if you have haters, it's because you're doing something that's worthwhile. I don't see Snowflake getting this type of hate, or Databricks, right? They're just seem like the crown jewels, and they might be great investments, but transformational, I don't know. Seems like
how come nobody cares of Snowflake right now? One thing I said a couple of months ago is that like it or not, love it or hate it, everybody's talking about Palantir right now because it is interesting. So I think also that helps the spread of the product. Maybe initially it is not that easy to get into clients, but at the end of the day, having this sort of controversy helps the clients that really want to understand better, getting closer. At the end of the day, it's like shareholders. If you know that something is valuable, but in order to understand it, it is really valuable, you need to study, you automatically filter the people that are just there for the surface or someone who really wants to get closer to the company. And remember that Palantir is not really seeking clients, is seeking partners with which to build operating systems that gradually expand and take entire verticals. And we have seen that all over again. For instance, Palantir just released an hour video with a demo with Jacobs, where we can see how this partnership from a couple of years ago is gradually expanding. They created this platform, Aqua DNA, and now they are expanding that to even like 5-6 other applications. So I'm really excited to see that, and the fact that these employees are super happy. You can see it from how they speak of how things are evolving.
Yeah, that is fair. Speaking of stuff Palantir released this week, we also got this, which is super exciting. I want to play this 2-minute clip and get your guys' thoughts on Kathy talking to Sham.
What I'd like to end on is Alex says we will be the largest AI software. I don't know the exact words, but the largest or the most valuable, maybe that's what he says, AI software company in the world. Clearly, you have said that an incumbent like Microsoft is, in a very good position. So maybe just if you could end on that. When he says that, he says it with such conviction. And part of it is we've heard that Palantir understands the way technology is going to be in 5 to 10 years. Is it something in that next 5 to 10 years that is going to be the aha moment for people who just do not understand this story?
Well, in many ways, I think we think of ourselves as incumbents. So I should kind of clarify that in a sense, where what we're talking about is, do you own the pixels that make the decisions in operations today? Or do you have the ability and the distribution to own those pixels and deliver on them? So the fact that within a week we can be working with net new customers to get production level use cases and capture their imagination, I think what we feel, the reason we are so excited is we feel like we have the elegant integration between the human thought, the LLM, and the algorithmic reasoning that's required to actually capture the market. Most folks are going to be stuck in one of these modes or the other, depending on where their platform has limitations. And so in that context, we can go incredibly fast. Many of the aspects of generative AI have meant that parts of our process that were a bottleneck are no longer a bottleneck, that we can reimagine aspects of how we go to market. Instead of doing what would have been otherwise historically really fast, a 6-week pilot, we can now do a 2-day pilot. You think about the opportunities that open up and how much more quickly our customers are able to take the technology and build their own use cases for themselves. So I think there's probably like 5 or 6 components that feed into the intuition that Alex has, which I share, that really we can take the whole market.
So that was pretty cool. He mentioned Microsoft as an incumbent is going to have a favorable position in regards to AI in the future. And so Kathy says, well, if Microsoft is the incumbent and they're going to have a favorable sort of environment, what about you? And basically, Sham says there that I think we are a technological incumbent, even if we are not a business incumbent in the context of the market cap. We have the go-to-market strategy that can happen instead of 6 months and 2 days because we've been building this shit for 20 years. And like, this is our opportunity to potentially take the market because we're the incumbents when it comes to actually implementing AI infrastructure. Dom, what were your thoughts on the whole interview, if you got a chance to watch it?
Yeah, I took a lot of notes. I have my notes right here. So isn't it so cool to think about where we were 2.5, 3 years ago and all the things we were saying we wish what Palantir would do? And I'm not saying we have influence by any means, but it's awesome that they are executing to a lot of the complaints that we had brought up. And I think that they were very self-aware. I think Alex is talking at an extremely high executive level, that the type of Wall Street talk that they want to hear, but yet he's still staying true to himself. I think that the going from a 6-week POC to a 2-day boot camp and being able, and I tweeted it out earlier this evening, a 5-day boot camp and being able to produce a production application for your business. I mean, are you serious? Like, get out of here. Like, for anyone who actually knows this industry, and I live in this industry, that's unheard of, right? And then once you go through the I can't plug it enough, the learn.palantir.com, when you truly understand the ontology, it's mind-blowing how Microsoft, Google, Snowflake, Data, none of them have that. I talked to CodeStrap last night, and he said that Snowflake's doing a couple different things to kind of try to do some read-write back access to the source data with Snowflake, but it's still not like an ontology. They got 10 to 20 customers in these boot camps, okay? And they have 400, 450 total customers, somewhere in there. I haven't checked it recently. So you think about, that's a big impact, right? If you're getting 10 to 20 customers in each boot camp. He said we're doing boot camps in Chicago, Tokyo. I just checked on Twitter. There was just one they just finished in Dallas. They're also putting current customers with new prospects in these boot camps, which is a best practice among the SaaS business. So I mean, the fact that they're getting the sales motion down to saying, you know what, we just need to get hands on keyboards and everything else will work out from there. That's what we've been saying, right? Give a free tier, give a freemium, get people to understand what this truly means. And then you look at the different, in the interview, you talked about the different ROIs. Tell me another software company that can literally say, hey, this warranty claims company, we helped them build a Copilot in 2 weeks, and now they save 4 hours per employee per day, right? Like, what? You know, large European insurance claims agent, they built a whole new sensor agent in 2 days. Like, these are the kind of things that you can't disprove, right? If you can quantify real return on investment in a software product and they can see the residual cost savings, your CEOs are going to keep writing checks to those companies because the outcomes are being delivered. And that's why when Karp says there's very few software companies that build actually software that deliver alpha, he's right. Like, there's very few that are very solutions focused and concepts focused. And that's the whole piece of the ontology and the data sets, is that they all around use cases and business concepts. So they're slowly but surely doing this in these different industries. And the beautiful thing is they get faster and better with each POC because you already have a framework. Does that make sense?
100%. 100% it makes sense. Arnie, your thoughts on this interview?
Well, Kati was saying when there will be the haha moment, but I think she was just having a aha moment from her expressions. Related to exactly what Sham said about you need to be already in the pixels of the clients. Basically, if you are already having a relationship with a client, it gets easier to expand these tools. But if you just build models, then you have also to think about how can I reach all these new clients. And the competitive space is getting very competitive on that side, while the segments where Palantir is the one that creates the most value. So basically, if you use ChatGPT or the other like Cloud or whatever, Llama, I mean, at the end of the day, that's not the key differentiator. The key differentiator is in how you actually deploy that model to actually do something interesting. Shyam, in another part of the interview, said a specific phrase. Nothing in AI creates an advantage in distribution. So Palantir, on the other hand, being already the operating system with which operators interact with, they don't interact directly with the model. Like, the model is the interface, but to reach that interface, you need an application like Palantir. So Palantir is perfectly set to capture this. And as Dom mentioned, the Palantir that we studied 2 years ago was a very different Palantir than we are seeing right now. We are in this weird spot where if we are close enough, we see that dramatical change. We don't see that yet completely in the numbers. We have started seeing gap profitability, all the stuff that happen, but we don't see the revenue growth because we are still in the acquiring phase, an acquiring phase that started very, very, very slow. I also made the statistics from the PDFs that we're making. Every time they release a new PDF on how getting started with Palantir, the time was shrinking, and now it is so fast that is a matter of days. So that kills the bottleneck that Palantir was having, the problem that kept the number of customers relatively slow. And another sentence that Shyam said that I think it was really important about the new customers, the existing customers. Do you remember when Carp said we are getting 100 customers in 5 months, last month 50 new customers? There was the question, okay, but are them existing clients that just make the upgrade or new customers? I mean, that's an important question, but we didn't have the data. And Shyam said, within a week, we are working with net new customers to get production level use cases in a week. That sentence is, we approach someone new in a week, not 1 month, 6 months, 12 months like before. We deliver something that actually works. And that is crucially important for also what Shyam said at the beginning, that makes a clear understanding on why Palantir is not only software, but also they have a very different approach from actually what typically software, consultancy firms offer. Consultancy firms typically offer big data integration projects. Dom, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's also what I heard here and there. What Palantir does is the opposite. Start small. Start very, very small from a pain that afflicts you. If we can solve that, and we can solve that by focusing exactly on, okay, but what's the decision that can alleviate that pain? Then we can know, okay, so in order to alleviate this pain, you need to have these data sets. And these data sets needs to be very integrated. These are the key elements that I need to solve now. So let's focus on integrating these key data and alleviate that pain. Alleviate that pain means value generated. That can be time, can be money directly, can help efficiency in selling. So basically, you create monetizable value with a very, very small fraction. The counterpart is I create a big data project that integrates all the data of the company. Okay, cool. It takes 1-2 years, and once you have done it, then new data is emerged, and then your data integration goes to shit again. If you start small, on the other hand, by the decision, like how Palantir does, you create immediate value that creates also monetary impact and also the satisfaction for the client saying, oh, actually, I'm creating value from this. Let's expand a little bit more. And that's how Palantir starts very small and then gradually expand. And I think the fact that it is after 2-3 years that typically Palantir clients expand very much is the output of this reasoning. Because you start relatively small, and then once you have a confidence, holy shish, this company is helping me saving a really lot of money, then I can drop very big contracts.
Right.
And sorry if I'm getting it.
No, you're good. That was great.
But there is also another concept that I failed to mention in the recap I shared that seems very interesting. Once you have your ontology set, you have a clear representation of your company. Palantir mentioned that even internally, they use their own products. That is good to hear. Skin in the game, eat your own food. But apart from that, Shyam said, once you have the ontology set well, then you can have a very specific output, and you can have all the a recommendation engine targeted to solve that specific output. Meaning, are you seeking profitability? Okay, now I make a shift in the entire organization based on what the algos tell me, the recommendations tell me I could operate. So basically is set the objective function, and based on that, all the algos that are strictly connected with the ontology can recommend little decisions that push you in that direction. So here I'm a bit speculating, but I think it is strictly connected. The fact that we have seen Palantir numbers, so far, the financial numbers changing so much in relatively little time. Remember, 1 year ago, we were deeply gap negative. 2 years ago, when Palantir was listed, Palantir was free cash flow negative. Okay. The evolution that has been there in these 2-3 years is not insane more. And now we are even gap profitable and set to capture a very, very big growth opportunity while the distribution bottleneck has been eased. So overall, I think this was one of the best interviews we have been hearing. Not only because a big institutional investor, like her or not, was really surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if now she dropped some very big bombs in terms of number of shares, but also because we see the evolution of the company and the management of the company. I think Shyam was brilliant here.
Yeah, so I'm going to just jump in here. To Arnie's point, if you know your tech is so good and know it's proven, which they do, because they've had customers for decades, and in the world of SaaS, that rarely happens, and then continue to expand. You look at the 50 plus million annual customers they have that continue to still expand by 20% annually. It's a different sales motion than any of the other customers are doing. And to Lunar's point here, they're not chasing numbers. They're not chasing, and I know he was referring to investors, but also the company is not chasing growth. They are chasing success and outcomes, because
that's a really good point.
It's totally different. It's focused on our software works. Let's find out what a problem is to you that matters to you as Mr. Customer, that you have to solve, because the impact is so great, you need to change. So let us help you identify that. I'm going to read this from the Foundry training I took yesterday. It says, the core part of the value proposition for most businesses is the ontology. Ontology is a clean representation of your organization's data that is structured around common business terms. The ontology in it was tweaked application development and integration of models into decision-making, details of which will be covered in the next video. For now, it's important to remember that the ontology should be a representation of your organization's data structured around business concepts. Okay, that's very important. We're focusing on outcomes and business concepts. Most modern organizations store data across many systems of record. Foundry can be used to join and correct data coming from multiple systems to create a clean data foundation in the ontology. If you're already using a data lake, data warehouse, or another solution, aggregating data from all your source systems, you can still connect Foundry to it in order to transform your data and make it available to business users through the ontology. In any case, data transformation is a useful feature of Foundry. In Foundry, you can use transforms, which is short for data transformations, to read data from data sets, transform it and save output to new data sets, and transforms can be developed into a variety of tools and executed automatically on schedule triggered by time or changes in the input data. So it's talking about the importance of preparation and planning and thinking through your business problems and concepts. And this is why, to Arnie's point, they're tackling smaller use cases so they can already show, hey, we helped you save this problem. You saved X amount of thousands of dollars. So a good example is in this boot camp, this warranty claims company got to get their employees back on an 8-hour day, half of their day back by building a co-pilot in a matter of 2 weeks.
Wow.
So you see, it's that expansion that then all of a sudden says, well, now all of a sudden you got the CIO's attention and the CFO, and they're saying, hold on now. Are you telling me you can do the same kind of stuff for, let's say, our HR department and timestamps and time cards? Do we not have to pay millions of dollars to Workday for our software there? Because once you have the ontology clean and fully built out, you're essentially you could rebuild with Foundry and the different tools in it, your own little mini SaaS programs that you wouldn't have to buy Workday. You wouldn't have to use Excel. You wouldn't have to use whatever tool it may be, because you already have all the data in a shared format that everyone understands in the ontology. And then all of a sudden you can now manipulate it for any user, not just your technical one.
Dom, have you noticed something that Sean mentioned related to how Palantir sells too? He mentioned something like, our buyers are not necessarily technological buyers.
No, you're exactly right. So me and CodeStrap talked about this last night, and here's the rub. Hopefully they get through this rub. So it normally is the most immediate, like, short-term sales cycle is when they can actually get to the CIO, CFO, CTO, and actually get a business, a person who's managing a P&L budget, someone who's trying to do some cost cutting and understand the business concepts. Whereas a lot of these softwares that are being decided upon, like MongoDB or Snowflake or Databricks, typically that sales motion is an IT director or a developer director and his apps team coming up and saying, we want this tool. We've already been using it. It's really cool. Mr. CTO, CFO, give us $10 million or $5 million, whatever, right? So it's more of a bottoms up approach to selling. And if we remember about 2 months ago, once AIP launched, Karp was like, we have access to the IT buyers for the first time. If that rub can really start not happening as much, and it can be a joint, like, because some people don't, it's a paradigm shift and a thought process shift to use Foundry over something like Databricks or Snowflake, all these point solutions that are just doing minute things here and there, but they're not actually saving dollars and driving actual outcomes. But once you get them bought on board and get them trained up, then everyone is a believer. You know, it's one of those things, people don't like change, but once you get them comfortable with it, and that's what these boot camps are doing, you show an IT developer that they are apps developer or IT director how he can save 4 hours in his day and each day and go see his wife on time, man, you got an advocate, right? And so,
and Sham also said on that earnings call that we are, for the first time, not having to explain to customers why they need an ontology.
Yeah.
But
which is
maybe
also really
because they start realizing, okay, the model is useless if you can't connect it very closely to the reality. I think that's the most important thing that we should always keep in mind, that AAP can only work if customers understand that to have an answer from the LLM or whatever recommendation that LLM gives you, in order to say, okay, I can actually use this for a decision, I need to know that information to be true. And this creates the machine that, oh, actually, to use this stuff, I need to integrate the data, I need Foundry, and then I'm happy to work with that.
I mean, what Lunar was saying earlier in the chat, we were talking, and AIP is just a great Trojan horse to get people to understand the value of the ontology. And once they see the ontology and what a clean representation of your business is, then all of a sudden you're like, feed me more, show me Apollo, show me some more Foundry apps, you know? I mean, the API connectors in Foundry alone are 250 deep. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
That also tells you about the power of the network. The broader the network, the easier it is actually to get other customers onboarding, because especially if this is just a bootcamp, is okay, your customer is happy. Hey partner, let let's go and attend this bootcamp in 5 days. So not 6 month commitment. You can have something you can taste how this actually is. Let me ask you a very quick question. How do you think it is from a cost standpoint for Palantir to have these bootcamps? Are them very costly to organize? I ask this because that is a question related to, okay, how we could expect the margins to stay, because if they are maybe very costly to set up, then maybe we should expect margins to stay basically flat. But maybe if they are very cheap, we could even think of, oh, maybe we will start margins expanding a little bit.
I don't think that they're too costly because they're doing them very rapidly, right? They did one in Wisconsin, they did one in Tokyo, they did one in Chicago, they just finished up Dallas. I mean, they're and the other thing is they're probably very prescriptive on which customers they're inviting, because think about it. If I have a lot of different concepts or use cases that I know that are prevalent in the healthcare industry or energy or manufacturing, I can just invite those customers and be like, I know your problem ahead of time. I know what you're struggling with. Wouldn't it be nice if you could do X, Y, and Z and let's build it for you? And so I would think that that's also what's helping these apps getting built so fastly. So hopefully it's not taking a lot of dollars out to do it, but in the long run, it's needed.
And there is something we tended to mention a lot at the beginning, but I think is not like we tend to forget a little bit. The concept of compounded knowledge. When Palantir solves a problem for a client in a specific industry, that knowledge cannot only be used to solve very similar problems in that vertical, but Shyam said what we have been solving for an oil company, so probably it was BP, we used that to solve a military supply chain problem. That concept is quite simple, but tells you how strong Palantir is and how strong it can become as the network of customers goes from 400 to, let's say, 2,000. If they reach 2,000, 10,000 clients, potentially that would mean that any business problem from any vertical potentially could be solved. And everything gravitates to the fact that there is a strong conviction in Palantir. Every data is a data problem. If we can generalize that problem as an archetype, we can solve potentially everything. And with the ontology, with the right tools like AAP, we can solve potentially anything.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about all of this as well is we had some news this week that OpenAI is trying to raise at an $80-90 billion valuation. And I was just listening to the Olin podcast before this, and David Friedberg made a really interesting point, which is that we're entering into a new paradigm where ChatGPT unveiled multimodal engaging with models, right? You can talk to it, more visual stuff. You can give it a picture of the periodic table and it can dissect this stuff. Like, it's getting to the point where it is just insane. And the argument David was making is that LLMs are going to start to be instituted in terms of the infrastructure of almost every operational workflow that you can think of, whether it's, ordering an Uber or ordering DoorDash, or on the enterprise side, obviously there's a million things. And if we do get into a world where LLMs truly are the de facto way in which humans engage with information, and AIP is what we believe to be the glue, and more importantly, the ontology is that glue for an enterprise to make sense of all that information, because LLMs become the new Microsoft Excel, Word, etc. Then that's just a big opportunity. And it's really exciting to me as a shareholder that they're going to market. They're getting 50% month-over-month growth in terms of customers. They're getting net new customers. They're hosting these boot camps where Alex Karp is rolling up his sleeves and getting clients involved. Because if this market's expanding to the entire world in regards to LLMs, the enterprise side of it is going to be worth many trillions. And Palantir just needs to get a small percentage of that for us to get a good return.
I just like that they're not rushing it. A lot of people are mad. I think there's some dude named Ricky on here was questioning the 13% growth. They're doing it methodically. They're not. They're methodically making sure that the customers they do have, the 450 or whatever they have, are continuing to see value out of the platform, are continuing to expand. And so think about all the customers they onboarded this past year, what those revenues are going to look like, what those use cases will look like as they build their ontologies out, say 3-4 years from now. So it definitely is a steady grower, a crawl, walk, run type approach. And that's what honestly intrigued me about the investment from the beginning was it was the right way to sell software.
Well, we mentioned previously you need to optimize given a specific variable. For instance, Snowflake clearly was optimizing everything for growth because that was how you kept VCs happy, valuations happy accordingly. While Palantir right now is clearly not optimizing for revenue growth, is optimizing for margins, good enough to make no one complain because GAAP profitable. So even if few cents on paper, your provider of software, crucial software is GAAP profitable. So its finances are in order. But now it's like, given GAAP profitability, let's maximize the value of customers and while also increasing the number of customers. If these two conditions are met, then it is only a matter of time where you can start optimizing the revenue function.
And they have $0 in debt, $3 billion in cash.
That's why Karp said, we will use our balance sheet to sustain this strategy of no pricing strategy.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're still concerned about 13% growth, you haven't watched enough podcasts of Palantir Weekly, because I genuinely think, and I think Arnie was the first person I heard in the entire community make this argument 2 months ago, which is that the lack of growth in revenue is a top line metric that if you want to invest in a high growth company with potentially exponential returns, it is going to be an elementary form of analysis if you choose not to invest because you see a less than 15% year-over-year growth. Because the opportunity for these companies, for Tesla 2014 to 2019 when it's not profitable, is seeing the strategy they're doing and taking the risk. You got to take the risk when it's not obvious. If they were growing at 40% it wouldn't be $14, right?
Yeah.
It would never got to $6.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you got. I mean, and that's where Lunar was saying, "Hey, look at the tech. If you understand the tech and you understand, then it should be that should strengthen your conviction." And for me, I mean, going through, I still have so many more courses to finish, but I'm just like a sponge, just eating this stuff up. I'm like, dude, I've never.
How about we end on that? What are you doing? Because can everyone take these Foundry
Everyone
courses?
can. It's totally.
So can you tell us
man.
about this? Why are you doing this? What is going on here?
I want to understand it to my fullest knowledge, and so you go into here. Or here, why don't you pull it up? Go to learn.palantir.com.
Okay.
And so everyone can go to this. It's completely free. Personally, I think Palantir should like really hit this home on their YouTube channel and LinkedIn. You go in here. I went to the Foundry learning path. You can knock that out in like literally a day. So I did the Foundry Foundations course. I did those 2 courses, and then now I'm on to the next one, which is 15 courses for data engineering. The only downside is that you don't get to, if you don't have Foundry, you can't like actually do it yourself, but you can still gain all the knowledge. They have screenshots. You get the PowerPoint presentations, and you really learn. Like, I was talking at a technical level with CodeStrap yesterday, just like about like what are the 4 main products within Foundry that most organizations are always going to be using, and that's going to be Pipeline Builder, which is kind of like a opposite of Databricks or Alteryx. Data integration is another tool, Ontology Manager, and then Workshop. Those are the 4 that no matter what your use case is, you're gonna use those in Foundry. And so I think once you just understand the value propositions, and I think what's intriguing me is like not seeing any other kind of software be able to do some of the things they're doing makes me feel more convicted about the technology and just the capabilities.
Technical says Amit's about to get certified. Bro, it's hard to find the time to do it, but if I find the time, I will.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's sleep is a privilege.
Well, I actually did the foundational part, but I thought that you couldn't go further if you were not using Foundry. So if I understand correctly, what you said, Dom, is that in order to get the entire certification, you need to be using Foundry apart from the foundations, but you can still have access to the material, right?
Yeah, you have access to all it. I've taken the quizzes. I've recorded the videos via Zoom just so I could go back and watch again. And then I even transcribe them just so I can, really sink in, because I'm more of a visual learner. And so I like to see the words like, oh, okay, like these key statements they're talking about, when like the importance of having a clean ontology is, so important. And that's why they start with these small business use cases opposed to just flooding all the data in. So
Okay. Not bad. This is the most exciting time, I think, in the world to be a Palantir investor. We'll see what happens next week. Stock obviously has done really good this week. Might sell off, might keep going. We'll see what happens, but not been a bad week. And NHS is still a catalyst over the next couple months. So we'll see what happens. Thank you all for joining. Arnie, you got anything to say? Last thing?
No.
Oh, you're good? Okay.
doing this,
PalantirPost.com, Palantir's Arnie Substack, Dom. He'll be on Twitter. Everything will be in the description. Make sure you follow, and we'll see you guys next Friday. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.